And welcome to Hannity, and former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich will join us in a few minutes. But first, I've said since 2008, journalism in America is dead, and now we see just how low the alt-left propaganda destroy Trump media will go to smear President Trump at every turn. And that's tonight's opening monologue. All right, so here we are. Today is day 50 of the Trump administration. The commander-in-chief has been rapidly moving to keep his promises to you, the American people, the things he campaigned on. He detailed a very specific agenda and has been going down the list, checking items off one by one. And today also, good news, we learned that 235,000 new jobs were created in February alone. Of course, don't expect the alt-left propaganda media to report all of the good things that the president has accomplished in 50 short days. Now, the biased press, they would rather focus on anti-Trump conspiracies such as this.
CNN has learned that the nation's top intelligence officials provided information to President-elect Donald Trump and to President Barack Obama last week about claims of Russian efforts to compromise President-elect Trump.
CNN learns the FBI is continuing to investigate an odd computer link between a Russian bank and the Trump organization.
Vladimir Putin over there in the Kremlin did everything he could to put guess who in the White House.
Well, no matter how much improvement America sees over the next 4 years, no matter how many jobs are added, no matter how much wealth will be generated, that kind of Russia-obsessed conspiracy propaganda, it appears that's all you're going to hear from the left-wing media. Now, meanwhile, none of the so-called journalists are even willing to conduct an investigation behind this unprecedented and, in some cases, absolutely criminal leaks that are happening in Washington, like the ones you see right there on your screen. Those are leaks since Trump's become president. However, at Circa News, two very well-respected journalists, they have conducted a thorough investigation into the Trump-Russia collusion claims. And what did they discover? Just weeks before the election, the FBI received a warrant to investigate a server connected to Donald Trump's businesses, but they found no wrongdoing, no collusion with the Russians. And around the same time, in fact, in October, a FISA warrant was also granted to investigate potential Russian influence in the election. Now, if the mainstream media cared about presenting the whole truth, they should run headlines like this. Federal investigation finds no evidence to date that Trump campaign colluded with Russia. I'm not going to hold my breath that someone will actually publish this, even though they should tell the American people the truth. And that's the problem. Time and time again, the media is so focused on pushing their radical, lazy agenda, they fail to see the truth that's right in front of them. Now, they never vetted Barack Obama. They never admitted to colluding with the Clinton campaign and acting as their surrogate. And they utterly failed to predict the rise of President Trump. So, who can disagree with me that they are abusively biased? Who can disagree with Steve Bannon when he calls them the opposition party in this country? Now, many in the media, they're so deeply invested in seeing that President Trump fails. Well, many deep state, Obama-era holdovers, they're still entrenched in government. And by the way, I'm not the only one that feels this way. For example, former Democratic Congressman Dennis Kucinich, he said that President Trump has a point about the wiretapping. Take a look.
People who are saying about President Trump's claim, oh, it could never happen. Well, frankly, it happened to me. And I had proof because the Washington Times actually let me listen into a tape that was made of a conversation in my congressional office. It was a conversation between myself and a foreign leader. The conversation was approved and cleared by House attorneys who said, yes, you can do that. That's your constitutional right. But someone had intercepted it, that my phone wasn't safe in a congressional office. Now, if they can do that to a member of Congress, they can certainly do it to a presidential candidate, and they can do it to private citizens as well.
Dennis Kucinich is right. And former Clinton campaign manager Robbie Mook, he also confirmed that some Trump campaign conversations were, in fact, wiretapped. Watch this.
You say there was a wiretap.
That there was a wiretap of Russian agents, and that those Russian agents were communicating with Trump staff. That's why they were picked up. That's what the intelligence community. That's what the intelligence community has told us. That's what's been reported very widely. Those are the facts.
Right. You, the American people, you deserve truthful answers. For example, what did the Clinton campaign know? When did they know it? And last night I said it was time for President Trump to clean house. It has to happen. Sean Spicer had this to say when asked about all these Obama deep state shadow government holdovers. Take a look.
I think that there's no question when you have 8 years of one party in office, that there are people who stay in government, or affiliated with, joined and continue to espouse the agenda of the previous administration. So I don't think it should come as any surprise that there are people that burrowed into government during 8 years of the last administration, and may have believed in that agenda and want to continue to seek it. I don't think that should come as a surprise to anyone.
Now, today, the Trump administration, they took the first step into purging deep state actors. According to a DOJ spokesperson, quote, the Attorney General has now asked the remaining 46 presidentially appointed U.S. attorneys to tender their resignations in order to ensure a uniform transition. Joining us now from CircaNews.com, Sarah Carter is back with us. What you and John Solomon broke, to me, is huge. Nobody was able to confirm what you guys have. That, number one, a FISA warrant was issued, correct? You're 100% sure.
We're 100% sure, yes. A FISA warrant was issued on the overall investigation into Russian hacking, and a separate warrant was issued to investigate the server that was registered to Trump Tower. And there was absolutely no evidence discovered during that search, and it was a very brief search of that computer server. It yielded no evidence whatsoever that alarmed the FBI that there was any criminal connection between Trump or any of his surrogates, anybody on the Trump team, with Russia. So they shut it down quickly. But you asked the question, when did Hillary know about it? Remember, she tweeted about it, and a Slate News magazine also wrote a story about it at the same time. She talked about these nefarious connections between Trump and Russia and his server. And then we had Harry Reid last October make those same claims. But remember, it was in October when the FBI opened their investigation into the server and closed it within the month of October because they found nothing.
Sarah, so this is amazing. We've been hearing for months and months and months and months potential FISA surveillance warrants being issued, other warrants. The president tweets out that there was surveillance, or he said wiretap. We're really just interchanging and parsing words. He's right. The media blasted him for that tweet that he sent out. But there was surveillance. There were 2 warrants. It happened. They found no evidence at all to say that there was any collusion. Don't you think, in light of all the media coverage of this, that there's a dereliction of duty in informing the American people what you and John Solomon, both great, objective journalists, investigative reporters, have found? Don't you think this is major headlines they're ignoring?
Absolutely. I mean, I think what you need to do is go to the truth. I tell you where there is evidence, though, Sean. There will be evidence as to who leaked this information if there are good investigators willing to find out who did. And that's where the trail of breadcrumbs will be. Because even though there's a wide expanse of intelligence agencies that can access this type of information, the leak on Flynn's telephone call, that was signals intelligence. That's a felony. Revealing that, like they did to the Washington Post, to David Ignatius, is actually a felony. And every time you go into a SCIF, that's a compartmentalized room that is highly guarded, so you can look at this information. Every time you go in there, you leave a marker. And that marker remains there so that people can go back and see who viewed that information. So if somebody wants to find out who the leaker is, if somebody wants to find out who violated federal law and leaked classified information on the wiretaps that were on the Russian ambassador, not on Trump, but they were on the Russian ambassador at that time and not on Flynn, they can find out. And that evidence is there. So I believe that whoever is appointed to investigate on the leaks will eventually sniff out that person, and that person will be exposed.
Well, Sarah, I got to say again, both to you and John Solomon, really great investigative work. You deserve far more credit and coverage than you've been getting. Has any major other media television network reached out to you both?
No, I mean, I've seen it out there. I've seen people talking about it, but no,
sad.
They have
That's
not.
Sad. All right. We will continue to follow this story into next week, I promise you. Now, with more reaction, author of the New York Times bestseller Treason, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. 2 warrants issued, no evidence found, basically exoneration by the investigative units, and the narrative has gone on since before the election. What does this tell you?
Well, you know, the first thing that hit me tonight, listening carefully to that interview, and she really made some good points. The second warrant which apparently went right at the campaign computer, is sort of the electronic equivalent of Watergate. I mean, in 1972, when the Nixon operatives, who were government employees, broke into the Democratic headquarters to find out what the Democrats were up to, that was considered such a huge scandal, it ultimately cost President Nixon his job. Now, what you have now is electronically, the federal government has gone into a campaign computer in what was clearly a fishing expedition. They found nothing, but they in effect ran the risk of violating the campaign. And it makes the question, why would the court have issued a warrant to go into a political campaign computer when there is in fact no evidence that the campaign was in any way involved with the Russians?
It is unbelievable to me because we've learned a lot about the news media. I said in 07 and 08, you called me once in the 08 election and you said I really was going out on a ledge and investigating Obama's radical associations and Ayers and Dorn and Wright and Alinsky and Acorn and Frank Marshall Davis. And you cautioned me as a friend because we've been friends for a long time. And I kept going. You said I'm probably risking everything doing it. But they never vetted him. They never told the story of how his rigid ideology failed this country. They colluded with Hillary Clinton. Now they are hell-bent on bringing destruction to this president. What does that say about the state of the media in this country today, sir?
Well, let me say, first of all, just for the record, I have since said many times that Sean Hannity was the only reporter in 2008 who understood the core radical nature of Obama and who attempted to explain it to the country. And in that sense, you were way, way ahead of anybody else in actually understanding what the underlying motivation of radicalism was that Obama was involved in. Look, I think it's pretty straightforward, and I actually like the phrase that Trump has used before. You have fake news. The fake news is created by people like the Washington Post and the New York Times because they're waging war on the Trump administration. This is not just bias. This is not just slanted coverage. These people are at war with the very survival of the Trump administration.
They are the opposition.
Sean Spicer was exactly right today.
Right.
They are the opposition party, and they are helped by government employees who overwhelmingly voted for Hillary Clinton. We know, for example, that 99% of the campaign money donated by the State Department went to Hillary Clinton.
Hang on one second.
99%.
That tells a big story. We'll have more with Newt Gingrich right after this break. Very important story we're covering here. Also, the king of fake news himself, Brian Williams, who got busted for fake news and lying, is now trying to lecture the commander-in-chief. Really? Austin Goolsbee, David Martosco, and later, Tomi Lahren and Jessica Tarlov are here. A busy news night on this Friday. And welcome back to Hannity. We continue with the former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, Newt Gingrich. So I had you on the other night. I loved an analogy that you use. You know better than anybody. You were the Speaker of the House. You said you get a box and everybody, what you need, the parameters in which you can pass a bill. I'm not particularly happy, and I think the president has not been served well by the way they rolled out the health care repeal replace. I know there are complications. I understand 51 votes, cloture. I get the whole thing. But I would have liked to have seen the arguments that we knew were coming, that were telegraphed were coming, resolved before they released the initial bill and not have the intramural fighting. Maybe it all ends up fine, but when Freedom Works and Americans for Prosperity, Club for Growth, Heritage Action, Cato, the Freedom Caucus, the study group, and Senators Paul, Cruz, Rubio, and Lee are against it, it looks bad to me, especially after having 8 years to put it together.
Well, I mean, it certainly looks messy. But, and I think this is part of where you and I just disagree. Vice President Pence, who was the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, who before that was, the Republican Conference rather, before that he was a state legislator, and then after that he was a governor. He made the point, look, this is the process. So there had to be a bill to mark up. They brought out a bill that people on both sides, you're going to have some moderate Republicans with a little heartburn, you're going to have some conservative Republicans with some heartburn. Now they got to go through a process, and it's a messy process. Phase one they got every single Republican on 2 committees. These are big committees, Ways and Means, Energy and Commerce. Every single one voted for it.
Yep.
Now they got to test the water.
And the amendment process, no one has any idea how it's going to come out. Am I so unrealistic that I know? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, Vice President Pence has pointed out, now the process goes forward. We suspect, I don't know, but I suspect there might be 1 or 2 amendments in order by the time we get to the floor. The conservatives will have a real shot at amending it. Then Paul Ryan, with the help of the president and vice president, has to get a majority of the vote to go to the Senate. The Senate's going to be very different. You're going to really dislike this, Sean, because the Senate margin is so narrow. They've got to get 50 plus Vice President Pence. That means they got 2 votes to play with. Well, you've got 2 or 3 moderates on one side. As you point out correctly, you've got 3 or 4 conservatives on the other side. And then you have people who have real concerns, such as Senator Portman's concern about the opioid crisis. All of those have to be blended to get to 50 and Pence as a minimum. Now, when they do that, they're going to have a bill that's not quite capable of passing the House. And then the real fun will start, and they're going to have to get in a conference committee.
Yep.
And they're going to have to fight this out.
In conference,
and
I understand.
The question will be,
am I naive, though?
I think, by the way, at some point you'll see President Trump on the road in some key states campaigning to make the case.
Listen,
this is better. There's no question. This is better than Obamacare.
I understand. I get the process. I get the sausage making. I understand the whole thing. Am I naive in thinking that a lot of this public fighting could have been avoided had everybody gotten a room and worked it out, at least a lot of it, not all of it, ahead of time with all the considerations you laid out, especially because they had 8 years to do this? I'm naive, right? I'm stupid.
I think that, no. I mean, last year the Republican House had a bill. They went through a long process. I think they had 7 different member meetings, and they put together a bill that I think had pretty wide support. I think they probably underestimated the importance of going through something this year that was more transactional. I agree with you on that. My only point would be, since you're off on the sausage making, is you ain't going to get a sirloin steak. There is no way in the American legislative process to get a sirloin steak. We might get a slightly tastier sausage. How's that for a Friday afternoon analogy?
Mr. Speaker, have a great weekend. Thank you for being with us. And welcome back to Hannity. So some of the alt-left propaganda destroyed Trump media. They're finally admitting how abusively biased they were towards then-candidate Donald Trump during the election. Nate Silver is out there with an article with the headline, quote, "There really was a liberal media bubble." And guess what? It hasn't gone away. Take a look at the latest examples of bias from the king of fake news, Mr. Brian Williams himself.
No serious person would say what he did. President Trump offered no evidence. There is no evidence, so we are left with a reckless smear of a former president. In that way, it was a stunner of a weekend here and abroad. The office of the president, if not the occupant, must speak with moral authority, especially at a time when North Korea is lobbing 4 missiles into the sea off Japan.
And then there's MSNBC's poor Mika Brzezinski. She's losing it lately, suggesting that Trump is potentially threatening global security. Take a look at this hysteria.
I will just say that what I think we're seeing across the board here is potentially threatening to our global security.
I agree with you.
On every level. And I urge people to read and really make decisions about exactly what they're seeing. I understand why so many people voted for him. I understand where you were coming from. I understand why you liked him. But this man is lying to you.
Here with reaction, former Obama economic advisor, hysterical at times himself, Austin Goolsbee, and U.S. political editor at dailymail.com, David Martosco is with us. Austin, look, I love you. Are you really afraid of Trump? Are you really worried like your liberal, hyperventilating, hysterical brethren on the left?
No, hysterically funny.
Well, it is kind of funny to me, to be honest, watching you snowflakes freak out every day.
Now, look, Sean, the thing is, the biggest network on cable is your network. you've been extremely positive on Donald Trump. On the very shows that you're talking about with Mika Brzezinski, there's a former Republican congressman sitting right next to her who provides a different perspective.
Well, by the way, we call him Liberal Joe. Liberal Joe has lost his conservative credentials many years ago.
I know compared to you, Sean, they're all liberals, but I'm saying
that's true.
There are many different media sources, and that some of them are liberal and some are conservative. That's healthy. There's nothing wrong with that.
All right, fair enough. But, David, I do think that, for Nate Silver to admit that, I thought showed a lot of character on his part. I've never been the biggest fan. He was wrong a lot during the election. He'd been right in past years. Give him some credit. His models were interesting, but he talked about the liberal bubble. The Daily Mail is not really part of that bubble.
Well, we're not part of any bubble. We're really unique on the spectrum of media that's covering the president. I spent almost 2 years out on the trail covering Donald Trump when he was running. And I will tell you, if you think there is a liberal bias in political media, you really have no idea how right you are. I think Nate Silver hit the nail on the head in one respect. He said it's not just because they are that way. It's not just because they all share this political view. It's because they don't listen to people or have a lot of people around them who think differently. There's a lack of intellectual and ideological diversity in the media. I think it's fair to say that at least 9 out of 10 of the reporters covering Trump on the trail would never imagine voting for him. And I'll tell you, Martha Raddatz was not the only journalist crying on election night. I saw several at Trump's election victory party. That's just the way it is. Kudos to Nate Silver for finally calling it what it is.
You got to admit there's some truth there. Austin, look, you're a pretty honest guy. We're never going to agree on the economy. We're never going to agree on, pretty much everything except that you married up. We agree on that. But short of that, you got to admit the left's reaction is way over the top, and I would argue that liberal bubble exists. The Russia story we have now debunked. We have Sarah Carter, John Solomon, two well-respected investigative journalists. John Solomon for 20 years with AP, and he's saying, yeah, there was a FISA warrant, yeah, there was another warrant, yeah, there was surveillance at Trump Tower, and they found nothing, not one shred of evidence of collusion with the Russians. How many months has the media been selling us that crap?
That's what I want to be true. That's what I want to be.
Well,
I don't want to find out that the president is engaged in some nefarious activity. And I agree that Nate Silver's point that the media live in a bubble, how can you not say that's true? They all predicted Trump was going to lose, and he didn't lose. But at the same time,
by the way, I'm in the media.
What are you saying?
I didn't predict that.
I know, but look,
I did predict Obama would be a failure. Your friend
in the media.
I was right about that too.
My question to you, Sean, is this.
Okay.
Do you really want us to trust the government as much as what you're talking about? If Donald Trump hired a national security advisor and the media comes to find out that he was being paid as a lobbyist for a foreign country,
that's
do you really want them not to report that?
No.
Should they not say that? Of course they should
Listen
say
to me.
that.
That's legitimate. And even Trump said there's going to be stories I don't like, but it's legitimate journalism. Nobody's talking about shutting down the press. I'm saying there's this hyperventilating hysteria that has emerged, which is very different than what you're discussing. But I would also add, and you should, as a liberal that believes in privacy, I assume, they shouldn't have leaked. They shouldn't have leaked from the intelligence community a conversation when they were surveilling not General Flynn, but the Russian ambassador. That's illegal. That's a violation of the Espionage Act, and that ended up in his career going up in smoke. So I would think on that issue, that's more important.
Yeah, look, I don't condone illegal leaks, and I don't condone the illegal leaks of WikiLeaks either. I have been very consistent on both sides that I don't like them releasing that kind of illegal
maybe Hillary, David, if she would keep her emails server where it's supposed to be and not put it in a mom and pop shop bathroom closet, and if Podesta didn't fall for phishing scams, that's not Donald Trump's fault.
Well, no, it's not. And let's be very clear about this. There are some very skilled, smart, and honest reporters covering the White House right now. But there are also some people who are just waking up every morning looking for the silver bullet that's going to kill the Trump monster. There are journalists like that. I think one of the things the Daily Mail has always been really good at is in just having a bias toward interesting stories. I mean, a lot of this stuff about Russia isn't all that interesting to people. It doesn't penetrate to,
it's
single moms
true.
in Peoria.
Not a shred of evidence has been presented, and they keep lying to the American people.
That may be true, but it's also just not that interesting a story. Look, I can speak for myself and my colleagues. We try to write things about characters and conflicts, but they have to be interesting stories.
All right. And by the way, I still like Austin Goolsbee. It's a weakness I have. I'm trying to get over my weaknesses in life.
Sean.
All right, coming up. Liberal comedian Samantha Bee hits a disgusting new low, even for her, by mocking a terminally ill cancer patient who attended CPAC and saying he had a Nazi haircut. Well, she apologized. We'll get into that. Tomi Lahren, Jessica Tarlov, they're here with reaction. And then later tonight.
My administration has been working on improved vetting procedures, and we will shortly take new steps to keep our nation safe and to keep those out who will do us harm.
The left, they may want to stop their criticism of the extreme vetting proposal he has. According to a brand new Fox News report, an alleged Iraqi insurgent fighter entered the U.S. through the refugee program by reportedly lying about his identity. Geraldo and Bo join us with reaction. And welcome back to Hannity. You know Samantha Bee, the host of Full Frontal on TBS. She was forced to apologize after mocking the hair of a CPAC attendee. Watch this.
This year, the bow ties were gone, replaced by Nazi hair.
Nazi hair, Nazi hair. Well, it turns out that one of the people that Bee is making fun of, Kyle Coddington, well, has hair like that because he has stage 4 terminal brain cancer. Now, Bee did finally apologize to Kyle, but here's what he said on Fox and Friends earlier this morning.
The effects of this go much further than just insulting me and the illness itself. It's just inconsiderate and very unprofessional to, lump together anyone with a certain hairstyle or just the way they look.
Here with reaction, the host of Tommy on the Blaze, Tomi Lahren, and Democratic strategist Jessica Tarlov. You're too nice. You're not going to support this. Yeah, I know you for too long a period of time.
Who would support this? I mean, she did the right thing, obviously, in apologizing, and she donated to his GoFundMe page.
Okay, great. But there's a bigger issue here, is that the names, the vitriol, the hate, the outbursts from Madonna to wanting to blow up the White House and the insanity of Ashley Judd and all the snowflakes, it's really gotten out of hand. And I don't hear people on your side saying, guys, you're making us look dumb and stupid. Knock it off.
I think I have said that, even maybe on your program.
So you're saying Democrats are dumb and stupid?
No, I don't think I'm saying that.
You're saying the snowflakes are?
Some snowflakes. I personally don't consider myself a snowflake. I wear black all the time, too. But what I would say is that, yes, liberals shouldn't do this. This is also a trademark of comedians, that they make fun of people's physical appearances. She did the right thing. Now I would also like an apology from Alex Jones for talking about Michelle Obama, calling her a, quote, tranny. Mark Dice, who said during the DNC, oh, look, we have a transgendered speaker.
Who's Mark Dice?
He's a conservative web host. Donald Trump, mocking a disabled reporter. No, Alicia Machado, Miss Piggy. You don't know Donald Trump?
You know, I do know these people, but my question for Jessica would be, and this is just an honest question I want to know, do you think that this was a conservative host, even a conservative comedian host, do you think that the left would have called for them to step down, called for them to resign?
Step down from
not
what?
Whether you
from
think
her
Sam,
show
not
on
that
TBS?
if you, yes. Do you think that the left would have asked a conservative host to stand down or to be fired if a conservative host had said
to
this?
Stand down every day.
No, do you think that? No, Jessica,
down.
that's not my question. Do you think that the left would have asked a conservative host to be fired if they had made these comments?
I think that I'm not really understanding it. Would the left have asked Alex Jones, when he called Michelle Obama a, quote, tranny, to stand down? Yes.
I'm asking
I think what Tommy, let me see if I can jump in. Because what Tommy's pointing out is a real clear present danger for all conservatives. There are groups that monitor, and I know who they are, in their underwear, total losers in life, that monitor 3 hours of my radio show, an hour of TV, in the hopes that I say one word, one phrase, one sentence wrong, no chance to apologize, even if it was an honest mistake, in the hopes that they can target my advertisers and silence us. Tommy, is that what you're suggesting here?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't think that Samantha Bee should be fired. I think she made a mistake. I think that she apologized for it, and that's wonderful. I'm saying the hypocrisy of the left. Because if this would have been a conservative host, oh my goodness,
But
all
but
hell would
Tommy,
have broken loose.
so I did understand your question. I named when I started a bunch of conservatives who have said awful things, including the President of the United States of America, who called Alicia Machado Miss Peggy, who said Carly Fiorina, look at that face. I mean, crooked Hillary even. We're talking about a candidate for President of the United States
but
of
does the
America.
left have the same outrage about this?
There was outrage about it. There were as well. There are a lot of people who don't like Dan Savage's comments as well. I'm one of them. If you are someone who defends people who have been bullied, do not bully. The language is unacceptable. I'm asking
Can I just stop with this thing? Look, we're all full of crap. Everyone that acts like they're so outraged and hurt by words, baloney. No word ever hurt me in my life. And by the way, Jessica,
I wish I was as tough as you.
You can Google. I've been called. Tommy's been called.
Me
every
too.
name in the book. Probably
Look at my
Tommy's even had it
Twitter
worse
feed.
than me in the last year. I'm not offended by what they call me or what anybody says on a radio or TV show. Well, not this show. Turn the dial any other show.
No, I agree. Words don't hurt me either. I'm more concerned about that individual who's a private citizen who had his hair made fun of. It probably didn't make him feel too good at the end of the day. But again, I don't think this is about words and how words hurt. I think this is about throwing around the terms Nazi and fascist, because those are pretty heavy labels to throw around. And those on the left, and even comedians on the left, like to throw those terms around a lot. Samantha Bee, Whoopi Goldberg, the list goes on. They like to call Trump supporters Nazis a lot. I don't think that's appropriate. I think it's reckless as well.
I agree with you, and I've never thrown that term around. I would say, though, that her comment came from the fact that Richard Spencer, who that's where that haircut issue
He's
comes
not a
from.
conservative. I don't even know I don't even know half the people you're talking about.
Yes, you do. You don't know who Alex Jones is. You don't know who Donald Trump is.
I'm not sitting there monitoring. I'm not the PC police giving a rip what anybody says. Who cares? Who cares?
I care, and millions of Americans care.
Well, you know what?
We're all snowflakes.
We're going to have to get a little tougher, because it sounds pathetic that, except in the case of you have cancer, leave the cancer people alone, leave the kids alone.
What about the disabled
Say anything
reporter?
they want about you, me, Tommy, or anybody else.
Totally. I mean, we're fair game. We're up here, and
That's
we
right.
have to be willing to take it. And I absolutely
I can dish
will.
it out. I can take it. I can take a punch. All right, we got to roll. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, my gosh. Coming up next.
My administration has been working on improved vetting procedures, and we will shortly take new steps to keep our nation safe and to keep those out who will do us harm.
President Trump is talking about the need for extreme vetting. This comes as an explosive new report finds that an alleged Iraq insurgent fighter was able to enter this country through the refugee program, like we've been warning, lying about his identity. Bo Dietl, Geraldo Rivera, debate that next.
It is not compassionate, but reckless to allow uncontrolled entry from places where proper vetting cannot occur. We cannot allow a beachhead of terrorism to form inside America. We cannot allow our nation to become a sanctuary for extremists. That is why my administration has been working on improved vetting procedures, and we will shortly take new steps to keep our nation safe and to keep those out who will do us harm.
All right, that was President Trump during his address last month to a joint session of Congress, explaining why extreme vetting is needed. Earlier this week, President Trump signed a revised executive order on extreme vetting, but the left, they continue to lie about the new order. Earlier today, Congressman Keith Ellison, he said this. Take a look.
Well, it was starts out with bad intentions. I mean, he campaigned on a Muslim ban. He said that explicitly.
It's changed.
It has changed, but it's not changed to the point where it's no longer intended to harm and block people based on their religion.
All right, just this week, Senator Ron Johnson, he sent a letter to the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, asking him to look into how an alleged Iraqi insurgent who reportedly came into the country through the refugee program was not prosecuted due to, quote, resistance from Washington officials just before the 2016 election. Joining us now with reaction, Fox News senior correspondent Geraldo Rivera and New York City mayoral candidate with both of our endorsements right here.
That's right.
Bo Dietl. You have Hannity and Geraldo.
Bo from mayor.com.
Bo from mayor.com.
How do you spell Bo?
B-O. Geraldo, I love you. This is why we vet them. Let's keep Americans safe. Let's not gamble with American lives. Let's do due diligence. You come into the country, we know everybody's happy and safe.
Fine. The new executive order is both constitutional and statutorily sound. The problem is everything candidate Trump said about Muslim immigrants during the campaign. The court will say, I know you're saying now that there's not a religious test. I know that this is constitutional, but I know your real intention is to ban Muslim immigrants. I think that he has...
Well, if that was really his intent, that's what the order would say.
He has destroyed his opportunity by
they're quoting Rudy Giuliani's comments.
Well, look at...
Wait a minute, 90% of Muslims not impacted.
Well, look at... Let's talk about evolving. What the president said, you can always make a compromise and come back. Right now, what the president should come out and say, you know, I thought about it. I made some statements when I was running for president, and I rethought about it. You know what I want to do? I want to make it tight for everyone coming into this country, whether they're coming from France or Germany. You have a lot of Syrians in Europe. I want to tighten up our vetting right now for everyone coming into the country.
I'm going to take what you just said, and this is the answer. I think everybody coming into America vetting.
You got the president's ear better than anybody. Probably have fast dial over there. I think the president should step up, and you know what? They'll show a humanity to all of America. Hey, look it, I made a mistake, but what I'm going to say is we're going to start to extremely vet everyone coming in. We want to make sure it's secure.
Here's a way to pay for it. If you want to visit here, you got to pay for your own vetting.
Well, Thank you.
That's a great idea.
Look at the global entrance that I did. That global entry.
We all pay. What's it cost? $1.50.
Yeah, let's be real about it. During the campaign, you say a lot of things. Now he has to show the humanity, and
he shows it through the order.
Yeah, that's but it's still the whole idea.
But here's how it happens. Right. Here's how it happens. That's what he has to say. That is testimony.
Right.
Right now, he's facing an injunction. There will be an injunction on the new executive order, I predict.
They'll go judge shopping.
Then there'll be an evidentiary hearing. Then the court now has to see whether the facts justify the injunction.
Exactly. And you know, Sean, you know, Geraldo, everything this president does is being attacked. You know what you do?
Well,
you take the attack mode out of there. When you say, forget about Muslims. Everyone will be extremely vetted coming into the United States of America because we don't want anyone that wants to destroy this country. He'll say he can get him to
Is that like apologizing?
Are you kidding?
I can't get anybody to say anything.
Sean, you're on fast dial. Come on.
Stop it. But you know what? This is important.
Yeah.
Here's my thing is very simple, Geraldo. I'm not willing to gamble with one American life. Right. And there are these people from terrorist countries. And by the way, first country I'd include is Saudi Arabia.
I was just going to say.
Of course.
If you want the country that's been sending terrorists our way, it's Saudi Arabia. Our friends, as they stick us in the back.
But don't even pick out countries. Say we're going to start extreme vetting of everyone.
I want everybody to know that as soon as we're done with the show tonight, we're going to watch the FDNY, NYPD knockheads a boxing match, and Geraldo's been in the ring quite a reception.
Geraldo was supposed to go out with his lovely wife Erica.
I just got him out of it. I got him out of a get out of jail free card. Although being with Erica is 1,000 times better than us.
Being with my wife.
Thanks a lot, Geraldo.
Fun than either of you.
Ouch. No,
come on, you're losing your man card.
The last time we went out, he was swimming in the curb.
You said
you haven't lived till you hung out with these two. All right, coming up, question of the day, and apparently more mean messages on the Hannity hotline. We'll hit that straight ahead. All right, time for our question of the day. So President Trump has now been in office for 50 days. How do you think he's doing? Just go to Facebook.com/Sean Hannity, @Sean Hannity on Twitter. Let us know what you think. All right, you've hit me pretty hard this week on the Hannity hotline. Let's see what we got tonight. It's always a surprise.
Sean, please. Let your guests talk. They get right to a point that we want to hear. And it's important stuff that we want to hear from them, and you always butt in. Quit it.
I would like Hannity to give a couple lessons to some of the people that are catching the football to throw it back to him.
That's a big problem. Some people can't catch and can't throw. As a matter of fact, that might happen in a minute. I try to let people talk. You got limited time in these segments to try to get to the heart of the issue, but I will be more patient and I will take your admonition to heart. Now check the number on your screen. We want to hear from you. You can be mean or nice, doesn't matter. 877-225-8587. That's all the time we have left this evening. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. Let's see how he does tonight. And welcome to Hannity, and former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich will join us in a few minutes. But first, I've said since 2008, journalism in America is dead. And now we see just how low the alt-left propaganda, destroy Trump media will go to smear President Trump at every turn. And that's tonight's opening monologue. All right, so here we are. Today is day 50 of the Trump administration. The commander-in-chief has been rapidly moving to keep his promises to you, the American people, the things he campaigned on. He detailed a very specific agenda and has been going down the list, checking items off one by one. And today also, good news, we learned that 235,000 new jobs were created in February alone. Of course, don't expect the alt-left propaganda media to report all of the good things that the president has accomplished in 50 short days. Now, the biased press, they would rather focus on anti-Trump conspiracies such as this.
CNN has learned that the nation's top intelligence officials provided information to President-elect Donald Trump and to President Barack Obama last week about claims of Russian efforts to compromise President-elect Trump.
CNN learns the FBI is continuing to investigate an odd computer link between a Russian bank and the Trump organization.
Vladimir Putin over there in the Kremlin did everything he could to put guess who in the White House.
Well, no matter how much improvement America sees over the next 4 years, no matter how many jobs are added, no matter how much wealth will be generated, that kind of Russia-obsessed conspiracy propaganda, it appears that's all you're going to hear from the left-wing media. Now, meanwhile, none of the so-called journalists are even willing to conduct an investigation behind this unprecedented and in some cases absolutely criminal leaks that are happening in Washington, like the ones you see right there on your screen.